want to welcome everyone to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. My name is Jerry Shockey. I oversee all the educational programs in a lot of schools we've connected with in the past, so I know you guys very well. So we're pleased to have you guys tune in again, and those that are new to our programming, pleased to have you guys here as well for our Heart of the Hall of Famer series, this time featuring Pro Football Hall of Famer Rod Woodson. And the real idea and concept behind this is to really focus in on what it took to get in the Hall of Fame beyond just the athletic ability. We know our Hall of Famers are great examples of athleticism and skill, but it took more than that to get in the Hall of Fame. At the core are those 6 core pillars that you guys are talking about: the trustworthiness, the respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. At the core, that's what made them great, because most of our Hall of Famers, it can be said, if their God-given ability didn't lie in pro football, they would have been a Hall of Famer in some other life endeavor, whether it's being a plumber, a coach, a preacher, or whatever it might have been, because at their core are those 6 core pillars that you all are studying. So that's the real premise behind this, and giving students across the country the opportunity to share with our Hall of Famers and ask questions and interact and find out what obstacles, what barriers, what got in their way, and how did they overcome those. Because one thing you'll find out is our Hall of Famers, they're just like you guys. They put their pant leg on one leg at a time, and they went through many of the same obstacles and barriers that you guys do and face as 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th graders. So we're pleased to be able to give you guys the opportunity to talk with one of the greatest football players that has ever played in the National Football League. But these programs aren't possible without great friends in the education field. And first of all, we have to thank our friends at the Oakland Raiders for setting things up. Scott Fink and Matthew Pasco there both did some of the behind-the-scenes work. So thank you for Matthew and Scott for your help behind the scenes and making this possible. And then our friends at Tamberg, now part of Cisco. They've brought a system to the Raiders facility and kind of set all that stuff up, as well as at a few schools throughout the Oakland area, so they could be able to have the opportunity to interact with Mr. Woodson. So thank you to Brian Eisenlauer and Melanie King for your guys' help on making this happen. And then also we have to thank our friends at eTech Ohio and Columbus, who are bridging all these calls to all the schools. Michelle, Josh, and Derek, those schools that are connecting, you've probably spoken with them, you know how helpful they are, so thank you for the State Department of Education here. Thanks to our teachers that are connected here, because without you guys, this isn't possible. And there's a wide variety of individuals involved with each one of these broadcasts. There's tech directors, librarians, teachers. I want to say thank you to all those folks. And then last but definitely not least, the real stars of the show are the students that are connected here today. And we want to thank you guys for connecting with us. And we want to give this opportunity right now for the students, all the schools be prepared. Then we're going to ask you to unmute your mics here in just a moment. But I would like to introduce those schools just so Mr. Woodson can see where the schools are coming from, and as well as the other schools that are tuning in can see where the schools are coming from. And when I ask you to unmute your mic and I call upon your school, go ahead and unmute your mic and feel free to scream out. Give a shout out, whatever you want to do. Make some noise. Teachers, close your classroom door if it's in the library and there's other people. I apologize in advance for this. But so let's go ahead and start with all the way from Louisiana in Jennings. Jennings High School. Can you give a shout out there? Okay, not too bad. That's a good start, Jennings. Well, that's a good start. Let's go to a place that Mr. Woodson is familiar with in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Carmel High School.
Carmel.
Okay. I think Pennsylvania just outdid Louisiana there. Let's go to the town where Mr. Woodson is at. Let's go to Frick Middle School in Oakland, California. Okay. Thank you, Frick. Appreciate it. I think Pennsylvania still might have that. But let's go to New York City now at MS 328. Dr. Hunter, your group's there.
Yay! I'm waiting for the list.
Okay. Well, hopefully they get in here in just a second when the questions start. So, okay. Thank you, Dr. Hunter.
Okay.
You got last place though on that one. And then lastly, let's go to our friends in Camden, New Jersey. Cream High School. Are you there?
Yeah.
And for some reason, I would say Cream High School. It's Cream Family School. My apologies for that. So we want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in here today. And I want to remind all the groups to make sure that you mute your mics throughout the program until you are called upon, just so we're not disrupting the other groups that are tuning in. With that being said, I would like to introduce our featured speaker today, and that's Hall of Famer Rod Woodson. He was born March 10th, 1965 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and where he also attended high school in Fort Wayne, where he not only excelled in football, he was all-state. He was also a state champion in track and field, and also all-conference in basketball. So it kind of gives you an early sign as to how well-rounded of an athlete he was. He went on to nearby Purdue University, where he played college ball, where he originally was going to pursue a degree in electrical engineering. Not only was he All-American football, but also in track and field as well, where he set records in, I believe, the 55 and the 110-meter hurdle, which, if I'm not mistaken, and Mr. Woods could probably confirm this through the program, but I believe those are still records at Purdue University. So it just goes to show that he had not only 1980 speed, but he had 2011 speed, as those records haven't been broken yet. He graduated from Purdue with a degree in criminal justice, and around that time he also qualified for the Olympic trials. But in 1987, he was actually drafted by the Steelers. He was a first-round draft pick, the 10th player selected overall, and as they say, the rest from there was history. He went on to an amazing career with not only with the Steelers, the 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens, and then ended his career the last 2 years with the Oakland Raiders. I'll give you a little information about some of his achievements on the field. He was a member of the NFL's 75th anniversary team and the NFL's all-decade team of the 1990s. He was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 1993. Throughout his career, he intercepted 71 passes, and he's the NFL's all-time leader in interception return yardage with 1,483. And I'll zoom in on this football here. When he first broke that record, this is a football from that game when he did eclipse and became the record holder in that area. He was six-time first-team All-Pro choice. And get this is, again, how great of an athlete he was. He earned All-Pro honors as a cornerback, a kick returner, and a safety. He was named to 11 Pro Bowls, and obviously the biggest honor an individual player can receive is being enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, and he had that take place back in 2009. After his career off the field, I believe he's been a high school football coach. He was an analyst. Some of you might have seen him on TV with the NFL Network as well as the Big Ten Network, and he currently serves as an assistant coach with the cornerbacks with the Oakland Raiders. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he still has a few dealerships. I think a friend of his runs one in Pittsburgh, so the students in Pittsburgh, maybe if maybe he can give you a Hall of Fame discount or something on the car if you want to buy it on down the road. We'll see about that. He holds annual football camps, works with various foundations, married to his wife Nikki, and has 5 children. So before I ask Mr. Woodson with his opening remarks, I would like to show you guys a quick video just highlighting a little bit about his career.
The Steelers selected the versatile Rod Woodson in the first round of the 1987 NFL Draft. Number 26 earned his first of 11 Pro Bowl berths in just his 3rd NFL season. His 11 selections are more than any defensive back in league history. In 1993, Woodson had 8 interceptions, 2 sacks, and 79 solo tackles, earning him NFL Defensive Player of the Year honors. Woodson collected 71 interceptions during his 17-year career, the 3rd most in NFL history. His 12 interception returns for touchdowns are an NFL record. Woodson was a member of the 1990s All-Decade Team, and in 1994 was one of 5 active players named to the NFL's 75th anniversary team.
And if all the schools for a second, if you can unmute your mics and join me in giving a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Rod Woodson. And if we can have all the schools mute your mics, and Mr. Woodson, if we can have you with your opening remarks, sir.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on and talking to the kids. Thank you for making me sound a lot better than I was as a football player, even though I try to do halfway decent. But, you know, I try not to have football define who I was. Some of the things you probably left out, and I'll let the kids know. I was born in '65 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but I was born in a biracial relationship. My mother is German. My father's African-American. Back in the 60s and 70s in Indiana, it wasn't a real comfortable life, I can say it that way, in Indiana. But it helped me define who I was as a young person. I had two older brothers. I was a younger brother, so I got beat up a lot when I was younger, which helped me become a little tough-skinned guy growing up. And then lastly, my kids. I think my kids really helped me develop in my compassion and love for human beings. They were the joy of my life, especially my oldest daughter. When she came out, it really changed my mindset. When you're a single person or a single parent, it's a little easy to live, but once you start living for somebody else and you're starting to take care of somebody that looks up to you, then that makes you change your mindset. So I just want to say thank you to all you guys. That's more of my story. We'll get into some other things when you start asking some more questions. But I just want to say, encourage you guys to, I know summertime is coming around the corner, so that's a lot of free time for you young guys, young kids. I would say be smart with your free time. Do something with it. Be active in the summer in some type of events or somewhere in the community. If you're not active in some type of club, be that, because I think what sports can do for you, it teaches you a lot in life if you let it. And I think sports for me is a part of you play a part of a team, just like your family is a part of your team, because you're going to have arguments with your brothers and sisters, and sometimes you're not going to agree with your mother about the rules and father, the rules that they set in the house. But no matter where you go in life, kids, I'm going to tell you this, no matter where you go, there's going to be rules and regulations that you have to follow if you like them or not. And it makes your life a lot easier. It doesn't make life easy, because life is tough sometimes, but it will make your life a lot easier if you try to follow the rules and regulations that are set in front of you, no matter where you're at. So with that, I open up the mics and let's start the Q&A.
Okay, and just to give you guys an overview, most of you have done this program before. What we'll do is we'll rotate through an order, and I'll give you the order now, and you can start thinking your questions, which actually all of you have your prepared questions that you've already submitted to me as well. But the order will be Jennings High School, Pittsburgh Carmel, Frick Middle School, New York City, and then Cream Family School. So we'll work in that order. You ask two questions. Keep your mics muted until we call upon you, and even between your questions, just to minimize the distractions, if you can mute your mics between your questions as well. But the one thing I want to encourage you guys to do, as I saw reflected in these questions that you sent me, is I encourage you to ask those thought-provoking questions. I mean, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to talk with one of the, Mr. Woodson's very modest and, doesn't want to, pull on his, show his, doesn't like to tout himself much, but you're talking to one of the greatest football players of all time, and someone that's achieved greatness on the field and off the field as well. So this is a once-in-a-life opportunity for you guys to find out what obstacles. As he talked about, he came from a biracial family in the 60s, which was difficult. What did he go through? And so I encourage you guys to do that. So with that being said, I'm going to shut up here in Canton, Ohio, and just keep things going throughout and let you guys ask your questions, and I'll chime in from time to time. So Jennings High School, go ahead with your first question.
Stand up. Okay. Tell them your name.
My name is Kate, and I have a question for Rod Woodson. Who was your closest friend on the football team?
Well, which team? I played for 4 different teams. I played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens, the Oakland Raiders, and the San Francisco 49ers. So which team would you like me to answer that question with?
For the Ravens.
For the Ravens. Ooh, that's a tough one, because I had really 2 close friends that I grew very close to. One was Ray Lewis. I think he's a very, very good football player. I think he will be in the Hall of Fame when he retires. And the other guy who got into the Hall of Fame this year, and he'll be enshrined in Canton, Shannon Sharp. Those 2 guys, we connected. And I think we connected because we had a lot in common. We all had a passion to be great at something. And a lot of times in life, you build your friendships a lot of times with something you're familiar with, and if you have common ground. And I think with us, we all had common ground that we want to be great in football, we want to win Super Bowls, but we had a common ground about the human beings that we were. And I think that's what built my friendships with those 2 guys, and Ray Lewis and Shannon Sharp. In my life, I don't have a lot of close friends, But I would consider those two guys, 'cause I still talk to them today, really, really close to me and my family.
Go ahead with your second there, Jennings.
My name is Hallie, and my question is, why did you decide to start coaching?
That is a great question, Holly. My wife asked me that question too. um, you know what? I just believe it's my passion. I really enjoyed working for the NFL Network. It gave me a lot of free time to be with my kids, to see them grow up. I played football in the National Football League for 17 years. When I first retired, I was offered a job the first year I retired, and I declined it because I wasn't ready to coach and to dedicate my time like you have to when you're a coach in the National Football League. I think being away from it for 17 years, or for 7 years, Holly, gave me, let me be a little refreshed in my body, let me see my kids. My youngest kid now is 11. My oldest is 21. I got a senior boy who's going to Idaho next year to play football. My wife's a tough Midwest girl. She can handle 3 kids in the home. So I think, because of all that, I got to see them grow up. And my burning passion was to be around young men and try to help them dedicate their lives more than football. I think the great coaches, Holly, are more than football coaches, just like great teachers are more than teachers, because I think they don a lot of hats. I think they're teachers, they're counselors, they're surrogate mothers and fathers, and you can talk to those individuals. So I think for me to get into coaching, yes, I want to impart some of my wisdom back to the players on the football field, but I want to impart my wisdom in life too, to make them better people living in this world.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jennings. We appreciate it. And let's go to Pennsylvania now, Carmel High School. Go ahead with your questions.
Okay. Hi. Steeler Nation says good afternoon, Rod Woodson. And my question is it easy for young athletes to think solely about their own performances and often forget about working as a team? And how do others help realize that being part of a team requires thinking about and respecting others both off and on the field?
That is a great question. And yes, I think it's so easy for athletes to get so consumed with me, but the most important part of the team is the team. And I think to help those athletes understand why the team is most important is that it has to happen in the locker room. Coaches can say it in the meeting rooms to the players. They can say it in the practice field. But until the other players who are older, more veteran players who've been playing a lot longer, until those players step up to a player and say, you know what, you're being very selfish. You're hurting the football team or whatever team you might be on. It might be just not football, but it might be a job you're working at, because that's really like a team too. You're going to have a leader, and you're going to have people in different positions, just like a football team. And I think at times your coworkers have to step to you and say, you know what, you're not doing what's best for us as a team. And for some reason, players can get consumed in them being the most important. But I think the great ones understand that the team is most important. And it's those teams normally find success, and those are the teams that win Super Bowls.
And you notice the 2 folks that he said from the Baltimore Ravens, Shannon Sharp and Ray Lewis. Those were the vocal leaders on the, along with Mr. Woodson. I mean, they've always taken that leadership role on any team that they've played for. So I think leaders kind of group together. But as he said, here at the Hall of Fame, as a business, we here try to promote the positive values of the sport. It's part of our mission here at the Hall of Fame. We feel that football is the ultimate team sport. But also, if we don't function well as a team here at the Hall of Fame, we're not going to be successful from the top all the way down to the bottom. If we don't have leadership, if we don't have rules in place, if we don't have some type of strategy, and all these things are things that you'd hear thrown around the locker room as well, the strategy and leadership, we're not going to be successful. So It applies to all elements of your life, as Mr. Woodson's already alluded to. So let's go back. Carmel, do you have another one?
Hello, my name is London. A lot of parents, spectators, players, and coaches become upset with officials. What strategies did you have in place to keep yourself in control when you started to get upset with the officials?
Wow. That's not a fair question, London, because I used to get upset at officials a lot. I always have. It seems like when you put on stripes, for some reason you can't be right with somebody on the field or with somebody in the stands. But what you have to understand is this old saying in sports, you have to outplay the officials. A lot of times you can't play and worry about the officials making calls. You just got to go out and play. In the National Football League, there have been a lot of rule changes over the last couple of years, and you've been hearing about these players complaining about the rules. What has to happen is that these players just got to go out and play and understand there's going to be some good calls and there are going to be some bad calls. Normally, London, the calls even themselves out throughout the game. But for me as a player, I would just have to, I'd probably tell them how I felt, and then I would have to walk away because at the end of the day, that official had the last say. And he was like the boss on the field. And you couldn't get carried away and forget about your job to do because you were so worried about saying something to the official. So I would say, for me, the way I controlled myself is not worry about it, honestly, because they're going to make some bad calls out there, things that you probably would think that you didn't do as a player, but you have to move on to the next play because if you're worried about what happened the last play, you're going to get beat somewhere else down the line, and that's when your head coach is going to get mad at you as a player.
Thank you, Carmel High School, and let's go to all the way across the country and right near Mr. Woodson in California. Frick Middle School, if you got a couple questions there.
Hi, my name is Cameron, and I'm a girl that likes to play football. But how come the NFL is keeping us girls from playing?
Carmen, you cannot ask me that question. You have to write a letter to Roger Goodell, and you have to write a letter and then you copy it, okay? And then you send that to all 32 owners, and you ask them the question because I can't answer it. I would tell you to play because I know my 14-year-old daughter. When she was growing up, I wanted her to play football because I thought she was the toughest in my family. I have 2 boys and 3 girls, and I think my 14-year-old daughter is the toughest out of all of them. So I wanted her to play. I would have loved to see her play football, and I would love to see the first woman football player play in the National Football League. I don't know if you can't play, but I don't know if any girls ever tried to try out for a football team and has been allowed. So I don't think it's against the rules, but that's a great question to pose to Roger Goodell, the commissioner, and all 32 owners. I think you should write them right now.
Great question. Let's another one there, Frick.
Hi, my name is Robert Johnson, and my question is, out of all the 4 teams you played for, which team would you go back and play with, and why?
Wow. You put me on the spot.
That's a loaded question there, too.
Raiders. I'm coaching for the Raiders. But, I played on 4 great teams. It's really hard for me to choose one of those teams over the other. The Pittsburgh Steelers I spent the most time with. I spent 10 years there. I came right out of college from Purdue, right to Pittsburgh. I spent a year with the 49ers, the last year that Eddie DeBartolo was a part of that organization as an owner. And then I went to Baltimore for 4 years, and Mr. Modell and Ed Bouchatti were great owners. Then I came here, and Al Davis is a great owner. That's a hard question for me to answer, and I'm going to plead the 5th, and I'm not going to answer that question completely, but I would tell you what, if I could do it over again, if I could play 17 years in the National Football League, I would split it up the same that I had. 10 years with Pittsburgh, a year with the 49ers, 4 years with Baltimore, and 2 years with the Raiders, because I think I've learned a lot and I built a lot of friendships over my 17 years at every place that I went to. So that's my answer. I can't choose one team over the other, but I really enjoyed my time at all the teams.
And he named two Hall of Fame owners that he played for, and two that are on the cusp of making it in the Hall of Fame as well, with Mr. DeBartolo and Art Modell as well. But thank you, Frank. Let's go back across the country, back to New York City. Hopefully your students are in there, or else Dr. Hunter, you might be asking questions.
Okay, we're here.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jeffrey Rodriguez from school MS328, and I would like to ask you which one of your many football accomplishments holds the most significance to you and why?
Well, I think I think it's separated, and it's separated two ways: individually and then corporately as a team. Corporately, we won the Super Bowl in Baltimore when I was there in 2000. So I would say that was my biggest team accomplishment, that go there to Baltimore, see a young team develop over the first 2 years, and then the third year let it click in and we won the Super Bowl. So that's every player's dream, is to put a Super Bowl ring on their finger, to hoist the Lombardi trophy, and to say you were the best team in the National Football League. So I would have to say, as a team, it would be the Baltimore Ravens 2000 year. Individually, I would say it would have to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame a couple years ago, because this game is very old. It's been played a long time, and to have only 200 something odd players and contributors in the Hall of Fame, and I'm one of those individuals, is a huge accomplishment. I mean, I'm a small town kid from Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's not a real big city. From a very modest family and a modest background. I never dreamed that I would be enshrined in the Hall of Fame, and that I could take my kids and my grandkids from generation to generation back to a building, and they could see a bust of their grandfather and their great-grandfather and their great-great-grandfather. So I would just think the obvious answer is to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame, because I think that's the ultimate goal of every player that plays in the National Football League.
And if I can interject here,
Thanks.
Mr. Woodson. Oh, sorry. If I can interject here, not everyone goes on to, let's say, a Hall of Fame career, or sometimes throughout your career. Oh, can we have New York? Can you mute your mic for a second? We're getting a lot of feedback there. Thank you. Not everyone goes on to a Hall of Fame career. It's a couple times throughout your career that you guys didn't win the Super Bowl. You played there. Obviously, you were lucky enough to win a Super Bowl as well. Not everyone gets an A on the test in the classroom. What do you have to say to those people that try their hardest, try everything they can to do to win that Super Bowl? Because I'm sure your teams tried just as hard that lost the Super Bowl as one that won the Super Bowl. What do you have to say to those students about that? Maybe not quite making that A, even though they put forth 100%.
Well, you know what? There's a saying that, failure is an event. It's not a person. And people fail at things they try to do, but you can't say that if you studied for a test. I was one of those kids in school where I studied, and I had to repeat it over and over and over to get it. But I went out and I got a C, maybe I got a B. I wasn't a failure. The failure is an event that happens to individuals. You failed the test. It doesn't mean you individually are a failure. You just have to get up and try again. And same thing with teams. They go out and they prepare as hard as all the other teams throughout in the NFL, all 32 teams. They prepare very hard during the week, but there's going to be a winner and a loser at the end of the day. That doesn't mean those individual players are losers. That just means they just failed to accomplish their goal. And then when you fail to accomplish your goal, what do you have to do? You have to work a little bit harder the following week to get back up and say, I'm going to do this. And I think that's the main thing. You as young adults have to understand that if you fail, it's not you being a failure. It's just that you failed at this certain thing, this certain task. But you as an individual have to understand that you need to get back up, get back to working, and understand from the mistakes that you made. And if you do that, I think you'll be more positive the following week and you'll be a success in your life.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, New York, with your second one.
My name is Victor Lorenzo from MS228, and I would like to ask, did you use football to get your education at Purdue, or did you use your education to play Big Ten football? And why did you change your majors?
That is why I played football not knowing that I would get a scholarship. You know, we're from a moderate family. We didn't make a lot of money. A blue-collar city of Fort Wayne, Indiana. If I would not have gotten a scholarship, more than likely I wouldn't have went to college, to be honest. So I did use football to get my education at Purdue. I didn't know I was going to be good in football. It just kind of happened. I started playing football when I was 9 years old because my two older brothers played football. And then once I got to Purdue, I switched my major because I switched my major to my minor to my major. My major became criminology. My minor was supervision. Supervision to me I really switched it my second semester of my junior year, to be honest, which is kind of late in college to do that. But I was just bored. I was bored with the subject. I was bored with that. I didn't have a passion for it. And criminology really excited me. So, you know, in your life, you're going to do things that excite you. And I think you're better at doing things when you enjoy doing it. I personally have not come to work a day in my life. To me, playing football and coaching football is living in a fantasy life. And I talked about football for the last 7 years. So my whole life in a work environment has been about football. So I really have never really worked a day in my life. You know, my mom and dad are blue collar people. My dad worked in industry. He worked for a company called International Harvester, which was a trucking company. And he went to work every day, hard labor. I know he worked for a living, but for me, I didn't work for a living. And I did use football to get my education. And I switched my major because, honestly, at the end of the day, I had more enjoyment in criminology.
Thank you, New York. And let's stay nearby in New Jersey. Let's go to Cream Family School in Camden.
Hi, my name is Kalia. And my question is, when you were on the field, did you ever get hit harder than you expected?
Oh yeah, I did. The hardest hit that I received, that I remember is, I think it was my third year. We were playing the New York Jets, and we're on the goal line. And I would hope that all you guys know where the goal line is at on the football field. But normally they bring in these really big guys, a lot of them. They don't have the little receivers on the field anymore. They bring in all the big guys. And they kept me on the field, and they ran a running play to my side, and I was looking at the ball carrier the whole time, and all of a sudden this huge offensive tackle was right in front of me, and he picked me up. He carried me about 3 yards into the end zone, and he like power drove me into the ground, and I lost all my breath. So I would say that's probably the hardest hit that I wanted to receive in the league.
And Mr. Woodson, if you could talk about this, just kind of in a way, it's an analogy for life. You know, we face on the other side, you know, we face those obstacles, whether it's a 300-pound offensive lineman, whether it's a business challenge, whether it's, you know, something that you have to do in coaching or something. We all face challenges. What's your advice for them in facing challenges? I mean, do you go through them? Do you go around them? Do you go over them? You know, what's your advice on facing challenges in life?
Well, you don't let challenges stop you. I believe that, you know, challenges occur week in and week out. For me as a coach now, challenges occur, but I think challenges are a great teaching tool for you as an individual. You can learn a lot from challenges. I believe you keep going after it. If you have a passion for something, you can't let that obstacle get in your way of what you want to accomplish in life. If you if you do that, I believe later in your life you're going to live life in regret, thinking, "Man, I should have done this. I should have kept going for this field that I wanted, or if I want to be a singer or an actor or a doctor or a veterinarian, whatever it might be." That you sooner or later, if you find something to get in your way and you let that deter you the first time, it's going to deter you your whole life. If you don't learn to stand up and fight and go for what you truly love to do, you're going to quit your whole life. And you don't want to be a quitter. I tell my kids all the time, don't let something that you love to do stop doing it. Don't let an individual, don't let a teammate, don't let something that happened to you maybe in the stands or in school, don't let that deter you from what you truly love to do. If you want to do it, do it. But don't be a quitter, because once you start quitting, it becomes a part of you. We're talking about these 6 pillars of character. And if you become a quitter, it becomes a part of you. And you don't want to be that, because quitters cannot succeed in this life. This is life is tough sometimes. Our economy is going through a rough time. But it's the people who fight for what they really want have a greater opportunity to succeed in life than those who just give up and throw their hands up and say, "Oh, that's too hard." To me, all the great people that I know who succeeded in life fought. And succeeding doesn't have to be living in a huge house and having a great car and jewelry. And that's not success. Success is contentment. I mean, I grew up in a very, very small house in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We had 2 bedrooms. The house was probably big as my living room where I live at today. But we were content. We were happy. We enjoyed life to its fullest because we just lived. And I think for you guys, you can't let the little things get in your way of what you truly love to do. And if an obstacle comes in front of you, keep fighting to go through it. Not around it, but learn from it and fight to go through it.
And that's great advice there. We just had, not too long ago, another Raider great and former coach, Art Shell, who did a program with us not too long ago. He touched on the same thing, said quitting don't let it become a habit because it can quickly become a habit. So that's a great advice to live by. Let's go ahead and we've got another one from Camden, New Jersey. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Manzel. How would you help shape a person into an important and skilled learner?
Can you repeat that one more time?
How would you help shape a person into an important and skilled learner?
An important and skilled learner?
Yes.
Yes.
I think every human being learns differently. I think you have to understand how this person learns. Is that person an audio learner, a visual learner, a person that needs to go through a process to learn? And I think once you understand how this person can be taught, that's how you can get through to the person. So I think you have to understand who the individual is that you're trying to teach. Everybody learns differently. For me, I needed to write things down. If I don't write things down, I will forget it. I mean, I have a list all over the place. I have Post-its everywhere. I write stuff down all the time. I did that in my football career, and that's something I try to tell my kids to do, but all my kids do it differently. Some of my kids are audio learners, and some of my kids are visual learners. And I think you have to understand who they are before you can start teaching them. So that's the first criteria. And secondly, I think to get them to be skilled and important learner is that I think you have to do it repetitively. In life, the long-term memory doesn't kick in unless you're doing it over and over again. So I would just say be repetitive at what you do. And if it's a certain field or if it's in the classroom, what's on the football field. I know on the football field, when we talk about fundamentals of football, we need to do it over and over again because where it becomes second nature to the player. And it's the same thing in life. When you repeat things over and over again, just like tying your shoe, You know, when you're a little kid, you learn to tie your shoe, but once you got it, you don't even have to look down anymore to tie your shoe. You just tie your shoe. And I think that's the same thing in life. Once you learn a skill, it'll always be there for you.
And Mr. Woodson already touched on it earlier, some of the things that he just shared about how to get people to learn certain things. You know, he does it on a daily basis with players, and you know, your teachers do it in the classroom. And he already uses, you know, that they're both so similar between coaches and teachers and all the various roles that they serve. But one thing I want you guys to realize is what they're talking about. They all tie right back into these 6 core pillars. It's when he took the duties of being a coach with the Raiders, when, you know, Miss Harrison there in New Jersey took the responsibility of being a teacher at that school, you know, that's all about responsibility. That's all about fairness. That's all about caring. That's about citizenship. That's about all these different pillars that you guys are studying. So thank you, Camden. We appreciate your questions. What we're going to do, we're going to go back to the top of the order. And we'll go one question from each school, and we'll rotate as many times as we can through. I see we have about 15 minutes left, so I hope we can get through at least one more time. So let's go back to Louisiana. Jennings?
My name is Jackson Pearson, and I wanted to know, what was the biggest challenge you've ever faced?
That's a tough one. I would probably think the biggest challenge I ever faced was growing up in a biracial environment in the 60s and 70s in Indiana. Like I told you when I first came on, my mother's German, my father's Afro-American. And I think the toughest thing I faced as a young kid was people start to either like you or dislike you because of your skin tone. And I think what that made me do, though, is understand that people judge you for who you're not. They judge you off the base of what you look like. And that let me learn at a young age that, and it happened in my family. Some of people in my mother's side of the family, they didn't like us because we were a little darker. Some of my people on my father's side didn't like us because we were a little lighter. But what that taught me is that the people that really people really care about me because of who I am inside. And so I think my biggest challenge in my life was to understand who really cared about me because of who I was inside and not what I looked like outside.
Great question, Jennings. Thank you very much. And let's go back to Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Carmel High School.
Phoenix.
My name is Phoenix. I wanted to ask you, in what way is your integrity your gift to yourself, and in what way is it your gift to the world?
Well, I think integrity is huge. You know, when you think about living as a human being, you know, I tell my 5 kids, and I tell, you know, I was coaching high school, you know, to do the right thing every day in life is hard to do, you know, but when you do it, you know, you just have a certain security about who you are as a human being. You know, you wake up every day and you have a choice to make. You have a choice to either you want to be grumpy, you want to be mean to people, you want to be deceitful, you want to lie to people, or do you want to wake up and be happy? First of all, waking up every day is a gift, because the alternative is not very good, is it, kids? What's the alternative of not waking up? It's dying. So I think every day, waking up in the morning is a gift. Secondly, you know, doing the right thing every day is a tough thing to do. It's tough not to be mean to a classmate that you really don't like. It's tough to be nice to an employee that maybe I don't like that much because I don't agree with their viewpoints. But you know what? Respecting that person as a human being and showing some compassion, I think is huge. Integrity to me combines almost all these 6 pillars together, because integrity is about being responsible, trustworthy, caring, compassionate, you know, honest, all those things together, being a good citizen. To me, it binds all of together. And if you can find somebody with great integrity, those are the type of people you want to be around, because those are the type of people who are going to make you a better human being in the long run.
Great question there, Carmel. Let's go to California. Frick Middle School.
My name is Tyshawn Gaines, and how did you separate schoolwork, family, and sports as a young adult?
Well, first of all, you go to school. If you play sports, you're called a what? A student athlete, right? So you're a student first, you're an athlete second. Remember one thing, that your mind is always growing. It can always learn. Athletics, inevitably, you're going to have to retire. Even if you play in the pros, eventually you will have to retire. You can't play forever. So and plus, secondly, to go to college, you have to have good grades. You have to have at least a 2.5 to get a scholarship in a Division I. And they just changed a rule in the NCAA where if you go to school, you have to pass 9 credited courses or hours, which is 3 courses every semester, or you won't be eligible to play the first 4 games of the next year. So I think what the society is saying, I think what the schools are saying, I think what the NCAA is saying is that school is very important. And what you have to do is that understand if you're going to play a sport, that's your choice to play the sport. So you're going to have to self-sacrifice, get off the video games, get off Skype and Xbox and all that stuff, and spend more time in your schoolwork, because the schoolwork is more important than you going to play sports. But if you play the sport, remember, you made that choice to play the sport. You don't have to play it. So you have to self-sacrifice from yourself to understand that schoolwork is more important right now, if you want to play sports, than the sport is.
And just to add on to that, just to let you guys know, a statistic that the National Football League puts out there for NFL hopefuls as well as the NFL Players Association as well, is that players that have completed their 4-year college education, players in the NFL, they make 20 to 30% more money and their careers last 50% longer. So those are some pretty phenomenal statistics showing, what education can do for you. But the reason behind that is at the core, it's a character question. If you have the dedication to go through college, then you probably have the dedication to be try to be the best you can be in the National Football League as well. So there's a lot of similarities between there. Thank you, Frick. Let's go to New York City. MS 328.
Yep. Where you go? Hi, my name is Miguel Paul. I'm a student from MS328. I would like to ask you, did anyone offer you extra in college? Extra. Ohio State, Jim Tressel.
So, ask the question one more time.
Did anyone offer you extra in college, Ohio State, Jim Tressel?
Did anyone ever offer you any extras in college? Money,
any
cars,
extras in college?
jewelry?
Yeah, you know what? That's a really tricky subject, because if you get anything from a T-shirt to a piece of gum, you're violating the rule from the NCAA. Purdue did not offer me anything extra at Purdue. But when I used to visit other colleges, they would offer you other things. They would want to give you T-shirts. They would want to, give you some hats and stuff like that, which is illegal. One thing that I did when I chose Purdue over all the other schools, that I chose Purdue because it first of all, gave me the best opportunity to play right away as a freshman. And secondly, I chose Purdue because the coach who recruited me, Ray Sherman, cared about me as a person, not as a football player. So I know they got in trouble at Ohio State for a lot of different things, but sometimes in life, the coach can't always protect the players. Just like your mother and your fathers or your guardians or your teachers can't always protect you. Sooner or later, it becomes your responsibility to be responsible and accountable for what you do. And in life, it's the same thing in college football and sports in general. But in life, it's the same way. You can't always be protected by your coach or your mother and father or your guardians. You have to be responsible, and you have to know the difference between right and wrong, and then choose right. which is hard to do sometimes.
And you notice Mr. Woodson said earlier about some rules are hard to follow. That's one of those rules that you may or may not agree with. What's the harm of getting a hat or a shirt? But it's a rule. It's a rule. So you have to follow it, and having the integrity to follow those rules, even if whether you might like them or don't like them, you still need to follow them regardless. Thank you, New York. Let's go to Camden, New Jersey. Cream.
My name is Tori, and my question, do you like anything else other than football?
Say that one more time.
Yeah, you have to repeat that.
Do you like anything else other than football?
Like anything else other than football? You mean like a sport? Or another sport? Yes. I love track. When I grew up, I was better in track and field than I was in football. When I first came out, I was running high school track, and I won state my sophomore year. And I won state my sophomore year in the high hurdles and the 300 intermediates. Then I won state my junior year and my senior year. Then I went to Purdue and I ran indoor. And I ran indoor Big Ten championships. I won all 4 years when I was there. I got second in the country indoors my senior year. So track and field was a huge love of mine. In '87, I went over to Europe, and they have a thing called the European Track Circuit, and you can go run in all these different meets in all these different countries. And I did that for about a month and a half, which I really, really enjoyed. But unfortunately, when I first came into the pros, when I signed a contract in the National Football League, I couldn't get my amateur status back in track for a couple years because they said that gave me a competitive advantage over the other track runners. So I had to give up my career in track, but I love track and field. I love watching it. I love watch the young kids run in it. I think it's a great sport, and that's one of my passions that I like to watch on a consistent basis.
And Mr. Woodson, if you can share with them a little bit, some of the extra things that you do beyond just track, but some of the extra things you do in the communities. You talk about one of those pillars, citizenship. I know you do volunteer your time for various things throughout the year, whether it's camps or whatever it might be. What's citizenship mean to you?
I mean, citizenship is just really giving back to your community. For me, I was really blessed to be in a small town community, and it helped me grow and develop some morals and a foundation that I lived on my whole life. For 15 years, I had a nonprofit organization, foundation. I still have my foundation, but I don't run my football camp anymore. But I did that for 15 straight years in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We have a scholarship fund. Matter of fact, the scholarship fund is still going on because some of the kids who receive the scholarships are so young. Matter of fact, I'm giving out a scholarship this year to a kid that's going to the Naval Academy. So to give back to the communities, to be honorable to your communities, not just in giving back, but keep it clean. A lot of times you walk down, you see all these, people throwing cups on the ground and stuff of that nature. For me, if I see cups on the ground in my neighborhood, I pick it up. I pick it up and I clean it. I don't want to live in a dirty place. I'm kind of a neat freak anyway, but that's a part of me. And I think giving back to the community, don't complain about the people that are appointed in offices if you don't vote. That's another part of citizenship. You have a right to vote, and let your voice be heard in that capacity also. So I think it's a wide variety of things, but I think for the most part for me, it's about being good back in your community and giving back to those less fortunate.
Okay, I think we have time to do a couple more here. Let's go back to Jennings, Louisiana.
This is Kate again. Do you believe in the saying, if you love the job that you do, you don't have to work a day in your life?
Yes, I do believe that. I said that earlier. You weren't listening, huh? Were you listening? I'm just kidding, honey. No, I believe it's true. I've been working I played 17 years. I was talking and I worked for the NFL Network for 7 years, and now I'm coaching football for the Oakland Raiders. To me, I really haven't worked a day in my life because I enjoy getting up and going to do what I'm doing. And to me, if you follow your passion and you follow what you love to do, you won't work any day of your life. You'll get paid for what you love to do. And to me, that's not work.
And I can support that. I've been here at the Hall of Fame for 11 years, and it's not work here for me. I love the nonprofit setting. I love the museum, and I love working with students like yourselves and great Hall of Famers like Rod Woodson. So, I mean, it's 11 years has gone by like that because I have fun. I have fun at what I do, and I love what I do. So I think it's real fitting. We're going to close this out on two last questions. We'll go to Pittsburgh and Oakland, fitting with the two teams that Mr. Woodson played for. So let's go to Pittsburgh first because he started there. Pittsburgh, Carmel, do you have a last question?
Go ahead.
Do you feel a coach should focus more on effort rather than the effect? Outcome.
Say that one more time.
Number five.
Do you?
Robot.
Do you feel a coach should focus more on effect rather than the outcome?
Do you feel a coach should focus more on effect rather than the outcome? Effort. I'm sorry, effort.
Effort
Yes.
more than outcome?
Yes.
Well, in this business, yes, at a young age, absolutely. And what we do, we want our outcome to be pretty positive because if you don't win in the National Football League, you don't have your job too long. But I think for young athletes, I think they have to learn to work hard. I think if you want to play a sport, if you want to go to school, if you want to be a pianist, if you want to do the violin, no matter what you want to do, you have to work hard at it if you want to be good. If you don't want to be good, then you don't work hard. And those are, people probably enjoy it and they'll like doing it recreationally. But if you really want to be good at whatever you do, you have to work hard at your craft. If you want to be a great painter, you have to keep doing it and going over and over different things. If you want to be a singer, you have to sing quite often to hone your voice. So I just think that if you want to be good at any craft, you have to work hard. And at the end of the day, you have to let that take care of itself.
Okay, the last question of the program. It's fourth quarter. Time's running down. The folks at Oakland, you get to ask the last question. Make it a good one.
My name is Jalik Abbott, and my question is, how hard is it to maintain your values in a sport where it seems that a lot of people are always getting in trouble?
That is a great question. I think what you have to do is you can't let your sport define who you are as a human being. You have to have integrity and honesty, responsibility and accountability and be reliable. I think sometimes we get so consumed in who we are and we want people to cater to all our needs, especially athletes. Athletes can get spoiled, to be honest. But you don't have to be that way. They choose to be that way. And life, your character, who you are when you grow up, is built on your life choices. Over the course of my life, I've chose to do certain things. And I think your destiny defines who you are by the choices you make throughout your life. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we're all imperfect. Nobody's perfect. We're going to make mistakes. But what you have to do is you have to learn from those mistakes. And if you keep repeating those mistakes, then you're not learning. So, some of the guys who make those mistakes, they can be forgiven. But when they become repetitive, and it's a pattern for that individual person, then that's when the consequences and responsibility has to come into effect for those guys. And I think for me, I just wanted to separate myself from football. I love football, but at the end of the day, it's called a football game. It's a game. It's not going to change the world. It's not going to change the crisis in our economy. We get paid for playing a game. Just like you guys play games in there, and you might play a chess, you might play a game of chess. It's still a game. It's the same thing, but we're playing that at a bigger scale in the National Football League, and I just didn't want to be defined as a football player, that football player. I wanted to remove myself from the football side of it and be a better human being. And I think those individuals, and I think there's quite a few of those guys in the National Football League. The only problem with that is normally the negative things that you're going to hear about is going to be in the media more than the positive things. So for me, I just want to be a good human being and be removed from all the negative stuff.
And that was a great question to end on, Oakland. Appreciate that. And Mr. Woodson, you've touched on a lot of different things, and I'm learning as well. This is what I love doing this program. I've done that now with about 15 different Hall of Famers, so I have my notes that I take and things that I apply to my life that I've learned from each of you guys. And some of the things I know you've touched on is finding something you're passionate about. That quitting don't be a quitter, because it can become a habit. Following rules, and then the last thing you really said that was pretty profound is that integrity is kind of the glue that holds these pillars together. Do you have any last remarks or comments you'd like to share with these students before we close the program?
Probably the only thing I would want to emphasize is that you guys see these 6 pillars of character for a human being. Really dive into what these mean. Don't look at them on the surface, but really dive into it. And I know it's hard for you guys because you're young. You're going to go. Summertime is coming out. You're just going to have you want to have fun. You want vacation. You want to get away from it all. But really, at the end of the day, try to look at these things and be a better person. I told you at the beginning of this program, I have 5 kids, and I tell my kids all the time, I want you to be a good person. And I want you to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. It's not easy. Trust me, I know. I was a knucklehead little kid. I used to, I was a boy. I was a bundle of energy. I used to do some silly things in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But I learned from those things, and as I grew up, I instilled these qualities in me, and even if your parents don't have some of these qualities, you still can have some of these qualities. And I would just say, I would encourage you to look at these things. Don't forget them over the summer.
The conference is about to end.
When you go out there,
don't worry. That's our 5-minute warning.
Just enjoy your summertime, but enjoy being a good human being, because at the end of the day, that's what people are going to say about you. That's a good person. I will want him to be my friend.
Well, Mr. Woodson, on behalf of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, from our director, Steve Perry, all the way down to all of our board members and everyone else involved with us, just like to say thank you for taking this time today to share your message with these students. And if all the students can join me and unmute your mics and give Mr. Woodson, Hall of Famer Rod Woodson, a round of applause, please.